today's topic, without further ado, is negotiating with suppliers, which when I first started, I found this really daunting. And in hindsight, I have no idea how I actually made it through because I didn't have the faintest idea what I was doing, where to start, what to say, anything like that. So, if you're at that stage, and let me know if you're willing to share that, what stage you're at. Have you started speaking to suppliers? Have you got a great supplier already on board? Let me know. But it can be really overwhelming. Obviously, what the process is, what it looks like. So what I've tried to do here is break down different steps. And of course, these can get a bit melded together depending on your product and how it works. You might jump from, step 5 back to step 2 or change your product. It can go all different ways. But in an ideal world, this is the general flow that you'll see as you're starting to find suppliers. And that's the first thing. Before you start anything at all, you need to know your product. So before you start trying to find someone to make it, you need to know everything about it. You need to know how many units you're wanting, what's your target price, what color, what materials, things like that. It can, if you're still fine-tuning the size or anything like that when you start talking to suppliers, it can be really difficult. Of course, there's always variations that can be made along the way. There's always small adjustments. But if you don't have the basics, if you don't know what you're looking for, how do you know when you found the right one? So to me, it's just logic. Know what you're wanting to sell for, so you know when you start talking prices if it's going to work for you or not. Because remember, we're here to create long-lasting businesses. We need to know our numbers. I'm very passionate about that. Once you know what you're looking for, you know your product, that's when you can start going out to suppliers. So there's a few ways to do that. The traditional way is obviously go direct, whether that's on Alibaba. There's also Wish Wholesale. Start making those contacts. The other options is, you may have heard this before, sourcing agents. So this is a really interesting topic, and it can be a little bit overwhelming when you first hear about it. But the way it works is you're basically hiring a third-party person, usually on the ground in that country, to go out and find your supplier for you. So I've actually used a sourcing agent for one of my most recent products. It's been a really, really positive experience. And the reason why I went with the sourcing agent is, first, I did try and do the traditional direct approach, but my product was very specific. It was very unique. And I found that when I was trying to explain what I wanted with suppliers, the communication, it wasn't working. I wasn't getting what I wanted through. It didn't matter if I sent pictures, videos, you name it, I tried it. I just wasn't getting the concept through. So I hired a sourcing agent who is on the ground in China. Within a couple of weeks, I had a list of potential suppliers that could deliver exactly what I was looking for. It really cut through a lot of the issues I was having with communication. And since then, we've developed a great relationship. She's actually been helping me with negotiations as well, which has been a tremendous help. And it's not a big cost in terms, like you might be thinking, I don't have the budget for that. I'm just starting out. You don't have to have that A to Z service. You can simply hire a sourcing agent to come up with your shortlist. Or maybe you want your sourcing agent just to verify that your supplier is who they say they are, that they're located where they say they are, and they have the capabilities that they're advertising. So you can pick and choose, just like you can with any other contract, what you want them to actually do. So keep that in mind. If you're really struggling to find a supplier that fits the bill, that's an option. And you can find them from all sorts of places. They're actually listed on Alibaba itself, otherwise Fiverr, Upwork, any of those third-party platforms, you'll find them. Or just ask other sellers, ask the room, have you worked with someone that's been really positive? We're here to help, and highly recommend it, but it's not necessary. Again, if you go direct, you can definitely find those great suppliers. You've just got to maybe carve out half an hour or an hour a couple of times a week as you get that list happening. And you'll start to, as you speak to them, get better and better at asking the right questions. You get a gut feel, is this someone I'm wanting to develop a business relationship with? You'll start to know. Now, the third one on there, let me know if anyone knows what RFQ stands for. You may have seen it. It's an Alibaba term, request for quotation. And it's basically where, and I like to think of it as a notice board, and you're writing out what you want and you put it on the notice board. And then all the suppliers can see, okay, this person wants to do, coffee cups, and I want this many and this style, and they'll come to you with details about how they can fulfill that order. So you basically, instead of going direct to them, they're coming to you based on what you specify there. There is a risk if you use RFQ orders. It is public. People can see what your ideas are. I'm not sure how widely that's shared or known, but if you have a hot product idea that you've spent a lot of time at step one refining and getting right, I'd be really hesitant to put it on an RFQ because it's there for the world to see. And, there's some bad eggs out there. You probably want to keep that to yourself. So let me know if anyone's used RFQs, how you found them. I know I've used them in the past, but I do keep it to that generic type of product. Hey, Michael, Roxana, Rama, I'm just seeing some familiar names coming through there, which is awesome. All right, let's move on to step 3. So once you've got an idea of how you're going to contact those suppliers, you want to start creating what's called a long list of suppliers. So, oh, great, Ram's used RFQs. So your long list of suppliers is where you're recording your key details, because you'll have conversations flying everywhere. You'll start to lose track of who can do what, how, what someone's terms are, all these sorts of things. You want to record it, and, some of you might shudder when I say this word. Just create a spreadsheet. Just put a big spreadsheet together where you've got the company names, where they're located, the minimum order quantity. You can rate them on things that are important to you. So for me, communication is a really big one. I want to know that what I'm trying to express is being received, that my product's going to come out the way that I want it to. So that's a really big one for me. Also, responsiveness. Things move really fast. I don't want to be waiting a week to get a reply. I want someone to be on it. It might be important to you if they're verified or not. You may see on Alibaba, there's different verifications. Some people are gold, some are supplier verified. It just means the level of certification that they've gone through. So each person will have a different list of what's important to them, but putting that together so that you've got it all in one location, you can keep adding to it. I can actually show you, I did up a dummy one yesterday. So let me stop sharing my screen for a second and open it up, of what it might look like. I just call it a supplier matrix. And I've done this on a bread box because I was looking at Niche Finder yesterday. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Niche Finder, but it's where you can go to generate those niche ideas. Breadbox was showing really high. So this is something that, you could make it as detailed as you want. Company name, who your contact is, what their verification, a brief image of the type of product that they're making, how many years they've been in business, just a couple of key things that is important to me when I'm looking at a supplier. And as I go down, I'd add to that, and then I could cross them off, make notes, anything that was really important to me. So Richard's just asked if I can define RFQ again. It's request for quotation. And that's where you're putting out to the marketplace what your requirements are. So you could say, I'm looking for 1,000 bread boxes. I'd like it to be made of tin and bamboo. And I want customized labeling. You specify what you want. And then all the suppliers who can fulfill that come back to you with details. And it's the opposite way around of, instead of you individually reaching out to each supplier you think might be a fit, you post an ad essentially, and then they come to you. So that's how I go about creating a long list of suppliers. So and I can't stress this enough, everyone's going to be looking for different things. What's important to me may not be important to you at all. So don't take that as gospel, but just having that in one central location is going to be a big help. And of course, following on from your long list, that's when you start getting down into your short list. So be brutal, cut out the poor suppliers. If someone's letting you down at this stage, I can guarantee that they're not going to be a great fit down the track. You know, you want to be, this is a crucial piece of the puzzle. If you've got a great supplier on your team, you're going so far. You know, they make or break a business. So be brutal, eliminate the ones who don't stack up, because there's so many out there. There's going to be the right one for you. Don't settle, is basically what I'm saying. And then you get into the nitty gritty. This is where you can start your initial negotiations. So obtain initial costings. And again, at this stage, this is where it can get a bit blurry. So initial costings might be subject to different things that you're changing. So maybe you decide to change your packaging, or you change the material that it's made out of on their suggestion, or it could be anything. So it can get a bit blurry from here on in, but you want to start those initial costings so that you know if there's a red flag, you see it early. If they come back to you and say, our minimum order quantity is 5,000 units and your budget only allows for 1,000, you know at that stage, and you can decide to either cut that supplier loose or make adjustments. And of course, with samples, you want to get a lot. You want to get a few. You want to test the quality, you know, how fast it arrives, how it arrives. Like, is it all dirty with fingerprints over it and not what you asked for and broken packaging? Or do you want it fast, exactly what you were talking about, you know, to that really high quality? That's going to be an indication of the final product. Like I said at step 4, when you're shortlisting, you need to be really brutal with your samples. And, you know, I comfortably usually like that 4 to 5 to really test out the different suppliers. So at this stage, you're probably still having quite a few different chats and negotiations happening with a lot of suppliers, but it will very quickly become evident who the standout is. And, you know, I've usually found that there's always a clear standout. I haven't really had the situation yet, and, you know, I'm sure maybe some people in the room have, but there's always one standout for me where they're just fast, efficient, they communicate, they really go above and beyond to understand what it is I'm wanting to do. The sample just meets my expectations. They're so willing to really help me on my way, and that is someone I want to work with. Once you've found that supplier, you've refined your sample, you're really happy, that's when you get into all your terms and conditions. You nail down your costings, anything that's important to you, get it in writing, get everything that's important to you, 100%. But before we get to that, how should you position yourself with suppliers? Again, I'm not sure on the experience in the room, but if you're just starting out, it can be really daunting to approach a big manufacturer. You know, they're huge, lots of employees, deal with some huge customers all around the world, and then you're coming in as that individual, never done this before. They don't need to know that. They don't need to know that at all, because remember, you're setting yourself up as a long-term seller, a successful business person in the Amazon space. That's all they need to know. So my usual approach is I introduce myself. I say I'm the group product manager for, you know, XYZ Co, whatever my company name is. I tell them I'm a professional Amazon seller looking to expand into a new product range. So they don't need to know if I'm brand new, that I haven't done this before. I'm telling them this is a new product range that I'm interested in. So you can ask as many questions as you want. There's no such thing as a bad question. You're setting the expectation with them that you are professional, you're taking this seriously, this is a new opportunity that you're looking into. And from there, you can go on to say that you're in the process of shortlisting, you are serious about this and wanting to push ahead. Because remember, from their perspective as well, they're getting so many inquiries every day. They don't want to waste their time. You don't want to waste yours. You need to set it up so that you are starting off on the right foot, and then asking questions that relate to what's important to you. So there's no harm in asking, are you the manufacturer, or are they just the middle person? What's their minimum order quantity? Can they modify? Can they private label products? Have they dealt with Amazon suppliers before? What's their experience? Anything you want, don't be afraid to ask, because you'll think of it, you're setting up that long-term relationship, and everybody's questions will be slightly different. These are just some examples that you might want to cover, but of course, depending on your products, they could be completely different as well. So Rams just asked, if you don't have a company, what do you tell? You don't need to tell them. Maybe you've got a brand name. So maybe if I just jump back, you can say, my name is Kimberly. I am the group product manager for, Bread Boxes Are Us, or whatever it is. You don't need to have that official company set up yet. If you don't have a brand as well, you can just say that your name is Ram. You're the group product manager for an Amazon business located in the US or Australia or wherever you're from. Just enough details for them to know that you are serious, you are here to take action, you've got specific questions so that they know you mean business. You're not just someone who's waking up one morning and going, oh, I might give this sourcing a try. You are there to do deals. So something that I just want to cover quickly is protecting yourself. So, back at step one, when I was saying know your product, understand what you're looking for, some people spend a year in that stage. They might have got expensive designs drawn up, prototype, whatever it might be. They've invested time, money, energy into getting their product right. You don't want to then just hand over all that information to somebody who could then, worst case scenario, you see your product advertised on Alibaba for the whole world to see. So that's where having your legal documents in place are really going to help. So things like your non-disclosures, non-use, and non-circumvention. So these, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't give specifics, but these are agreements that are designed to protect you. They're enforceable in China. Your standard non-disclosure agreements, which you often hear, they aren't enforceable there. So recommend looking into the 3 N's, the non-disclosure, non-use, non-circumvention. It's just going to give you that little peace of mind, especially when you've invested so much of yourself into getting that product just right. You don't want anyone else accessing it. You don't want to be competing with your own products on Amazon. So definitely get that sorted. And then, like I said before, if there's something important to you, a conditional term, write it down and get both parties to sign it. You've got a written record. And, nothing, I was worried when I first started creating these that they would say, this is ridiculous. You've got so many terms and conditions. Not once has that happened. They are very happy to sit down and talk through terms and conditions. You're setting the expectation of what's expected. Everybody knows where they stand, and it's something you can refer back to if there's any issues. It is just the most important thing, and I can't stress that enough. So some examples of what you might want to include in your contracts. This is a big one for me. Like I said, when I first started back in 2018, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't do up a contract, and I didn't put any timelines in. And I quickly realized that if I didn't do that, my production run was always pushed to the back of the line. So I would be waiting so long to get my goods made because I didn't have a due date, basically. So what I do now is I always specify a due date. I make sure it's reasonable. And if they go over that due date, I ask for a 5% discount for every 7 days they're late. I've put that into 3 contracts now, and they've all been agreed to, and not once has a production been late ever since. So that term is my, I wouldn't do any sourcing without it. But Again, if anyone has suggestions on what they do, or you might have a different way to do it, just yell out, because we're here to learn. And these are just some suggestions. The other one is the payment time frame. So the schedule. You might find that if you go into negotiate, well, if you don't set up a contract, you don't negotiate this, more often than not, they'll ask for a 50% deposit, 50% on completion. If you write it in a contract, more likely than not, you'll get 30%, 70% on completion. The bigger you get, the more flexible you'll get. I've heard of incredible deals where people are paying the balance when their stock actually hits Amazon. I'm not at that level yet, but hopefully one day. So just, if I can drive any point home, it's that these are your negotiable terms, the ones that are important to you. Don't give up on. There's always a little bit of wiggle room. There's something you can do to get that in there and give you that peace of mind. I always write into the contract that I have the right to engage a quality inspection, and that I will withhold final payment until any defects that identified are rectified. So that didn't mean to rhyme, but it did. It just gives me peace of mind that at the end, when the production's done, I'm getting what we agreed to, that my stock is in the right condition. Everything's included in there that was supposed to be in there. If it's not, they will fix it. Shipping's a big one. You know, what are the terms? Is it free on board, X works? What's that look like? If your supply is located very far from a shipping port, that can be quite a big cost. You want to know who's wearing that. So write that in. Otherwise, I can guarantee you'll be given an X works invoice. Price, that's a no-brainer. Write the price in there. But what I would suggest doing, because obviously when you're just starting out, you know, a lot of us are working with very tight budgets, especially on those first few production runs. You know, you might be doing a very low minimum order quantity, which leads me to my next point. But, you know, you want to make sure that as your orders increase, you get a discount, that your price drops. So I usually do a table, and it's, you know, if I order up to 2,000 units, this is the price. If I order between 2,000 units and 5,000 units, this is the reduced price. And it keeps going. So I know that on a future order, if I order 10,000 units, this is the price I'm paying. And I'll lock that in for a time period. So maybe I say for a 1-year period, I can order this for this much. And it just gives me peace of mind. I know when I'm planning what I'm in for. It's just a huge weight off my mind. And minimum order quantity, this is another big one when you're just starting out, because often you are pushed to place those big orders. Maybe you don't have complete confidence in, you know, the process. You're not sure how this works. You just want to test the waters. There is nothing wrong with that. And leading back to the messaging, that's where you can push the point that I am a professional Amazon seller. This is a new niche that I'm going into. This is a new product market. Our process is to test the market first. So maybe we want to do a small order, 500 units, whatever you're comfortable with. Once that's proven, we will be back ordering a much bigger quantity, and you can even throw around numbers. So my first run, I will be ordering 500. If it's proven, I will come back to you in a month and order 2,000 units or whatever it might be. So you've got the control about the reordering. They have peace of mind knowing, okay, this is potentially a much bigger customer long term. We're willing to negotiate on this. So just something to keep in mind. And packaging, that's a big one, because what often happens is people get stuck on the product itself. You know, they put all the effort into the design, what it looks like, it's amazing. And then they're like, oh, it's ready, but I forgot about the packaging. And that can be a huge cost, especially if you're dealing with things that are breakable, fragile, have moving parts. You know, making sure that that's packed and going to withstand not only the shipping from, you know, whether it's China to America or wherever it's going to, but then being handled in the Amazon warehouses, out in the delivery guys. It needs to be solid, and you want it to look amazing. You don't want your packaging to let you down. It's the first thing people see. So I personally like to have that included in the cost. I often find that manufacturers have packaging or boxing companies that they work closely with, and they can provide pretty favorable rates. I always cross-check it with prices in the market. No one wants to be taken advantage of, so do your due diligence there. But having that written into the contract, I know that my price is inclusive of everything, really helps. And again, this is my personal preference, but don't forget about packaging and product specifications. If there's something you need in your product, whether it's the materials or maybe you want the handle done in a special paint or whatever it might be, write it in there. Super important. No detail is too small. And like I said, don't feel silly. You're protecting yourself. You're setting your business up for success. So I can see some questions have come through. Rama, you don't need to have an ABN to talk to suppliers, to ship and things like that. If you're running an Amazon business, and ABN is an Australian term, Australian business number. So if you're in Australia running an Amazon business, you will need an ABN, but you can get one for yourself as an individual. You don't have to have a company. It's definitely something to speak to your accountant about, what the best tax structure is for you. You can get that done within 10 minutes. It's free, it's online. Definitely not a big obstacle. It can sound overwhelming when you start talking about structuring and what's right for you. So, sit down with your accountant and just have that quick chat, but definitely not a big hurdle to overcome. Yes, there is a recording of the session. You'll have it emailed out to you within a couple of hours. And of course, if there is anything that I don't get to, and I always try and make time, just reach out to support at ZonGuru.com. We're a team of sellers. We're always there to help. So definitely all covered. And that is me. I've been talking for almost 30 minutes straight, but like I said, I am here to answer any questions that you have. So feel free to send them through. They don't need to be related to suppliers, negotiations, and things like that. Even let me know where you're at in your Amazon journey. Is your product live? Do you have any? For those who do have products live, was there a big takeaway that you wish someone? Not a takeaway. What would be the thing that you wish you knew before you started sourcing? What was that one thing that would have really helped you? I know to me, and I've touched on it a few times, it's just have confidence. Write any conditions that are important to you, write them down. Your business is more important than what a supplier might think that you're being over the top. You're not. You're protecting yourself. You're making sure that you know exactly what you're getting. So and it can be the start of something amazing when you do find that supplier that you really click with. So Michael's just asked, how do you set up a buyer matrix in ZonGuru? So I just use a spreadsheet. I don't actually, in ZonGuru, you can use our Easy Source tool, which is an amazing tool to start filtering through suppliers. But there's at the moment great. So there's no tool on the market that actually does this. So I just put it in Excel, and anything that's important to me, I just create as a column, and I have like a rating system on a few different softer metrics, like, that communication piece, their responsiveness, those things like that. So Joseph's just asked, I'm on an annual plan with ZonGuru. What will happen? So with ZonGuru, it's a subscription-based service, and we don't want you to suddenly find that you can't log into our tools or miss out on any of your data. So what we do is it just ticks over on whatever plan you're on. So you can definitely make the switch to monthly if you want. You can switch from monthly to annual. You can go up a plan, down a plan. It's totally up to you. So if you go to your ZonGuru login, Joseph, you'll see in the top right-hand corner, there's a button where you can look at subscription. And from there, you can make any changes you want. Or again, just reach out to support and we'll walk you through it. But it's totally flexible and yours to control. So no one's told me where they're at in their journey, so I'm guessing we're a bit of a mix. But I hope you got some value out of today's session. next week, Veronica will be hosting, and she's going to go through keywords. So that's a super important one, because obviously keywords are how your buyers find you. It's a little bit further ahead in the journey, but finding those keywords that people aren't making the most of can be a great way to come up with product ideas as well. So for those of you not quite at that stage, there's definitely something in there for you. And if there's one thing I can, for those of you who got value out of today, and I really hope you did, if you wanted to leave any feedback or, suggestions, future training topics, whatever you have, just click the link. It comes straight to me, and I'll hear it, and I'll be able to plan for future sessions that really help solve those points. So today's session came about just because of a few people saying, hey, we're really struggling with talking to our suppliers, or how to start those conversations. So Ruxana's just asked, how can we see which plans has which tools included? If you go to zonguru.com/pricing, and I'll drop that link in there, scroll down the page just a touch, you'll see exactly what's included in each plan there. There's a little table that will really help with that. Thanks, Joseph. Yeah, soon in the ANZ, yeah, it can feel like that with PPC. And for those who have been listening to me for a little while, PPC is definitely something that I've wanted to bury my head in the sand about. It's not my favorite thing at all. Once you've got your process down pat, and Stefan, our CTO, he's one of our chief designers, very analytical. He walked me through this approach that I found super helpful, and now it's like 10 minutes a week that I monitor. But setting it up in the start, I found very challenging, but now that I know it, it's not so bad. So for those of you in that space as well, I'll just drop another link in that walks you through Stefan's process, just in case anyone needs it. But PPC, for those that don't know, it's pay per click advertising. Okay, let me bring it up. And oh, great. I love hearing people's takeaways. Don't source cheap items, high shipping costs, plus the need for PPC requires a high price. I couldn't agree more with that. Now, forgive me for this ridiculously long link for the PPC, but there it is. Lois, I really agree with your approach there. Often when you're starting out, if you're on a tight budget, you want to go for those really cheap products. You want to go for the cheap products because you feel like it's less risk, but in reality, they're much higher risk because the profit margins are so much smaller. They're also usually more competitive. And when you put PPC into the mix, you could be paying $1 in advertising for a click. If you're selling a product for $5 and you spend $1 on advertising and maybe $2 to source it, and maybe some more to ship it, your profit margin is nothing. It's not worth it. So definitely don't go for those super cheap items. Ruxana, congratulations. You launched 2 months ago. Yeah, awesome. It can be at the start when you first go live, you get those first few sales through. It's such a validation, because if you can make that first $1, you can, it's proven you can do it. It's gaining that momentum. You'll find that as your reviews start to come through, your rankings improve, it snowballs. And hand on heart, you'll see that happen. And yeah, is it in Australia or the US, Ruxana? I'd love to know. And Michael's asking for the product tracker sheet for the UK. I will email that one to you because it hasn't been loaded online yet, but it's definitely there. UK market. I'll send that one out to you straight after this, Michael. We've got 2 Michaels in the room, which is confusing me a little bit, so I'll try and keep up. So complete notice also, yeah, nothing wrong with that, Michael. 6 months from now, who knows where you'll be. Ruxana, yeah, USA, that's awesome. USA, it's much more competitive. It can be tough, but the rewards are, out of this world, like nothing we could experience elsewhere. So stick with it, watch your rankings, get those reviews up, put review automator on. I know you know all this stuff already, you know your stuff. So yeah, keep with it. So that's awesome. As always, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I love the interaction in this room and the familiar names that come through. Really, you know, it's great to see. Like I said, and it's so cliche, but it helps to surround yourself with other sellers. And yeah, all the best. If there's any questions, just reach out to support. You know where to find me. Thanks, everyone.